So what's going on, guys? This is the next video. What we're going to be doing now is we're going to be taking the motor out of the 87 Caprice. It was pretty bad. It was smoking. So we're going to rebuild that motor. We're not going to do anything crazy with it. We're just going to freshen it up, make it run really good, get that air conditioning running really good, and go from there. Okay, so this motor came out of the car. It had roughly about 160,000 miles on it. Again, it was a 1987. This is just a 305, nothing spectacular or fancy. It has a bunch of smog things on it that we're going to have to actually delete. It has a bunch of just random stuff that doesn't really require to make the engine run, and it's probably going to make it run not as good as it should. We're going to put headers, rebuild the engine, new carburetor, intake, bunch of things. So we'll get this thing looking good and running even better. Alright, so here I'm just going to start breaking down the motor. It's just going to be a time lapse. There's a lot to do and see, but some of this stuff we're not going to be using again. We're not going to use the exhaust manifolds. This air pump system is going to go away. I'm going to save the brackets just in case I ever want to put a second alternator maybe. We want air conditioning. We want the alternator, the power, steering. So stuff like that we got to save. So this video actually even let me figure out how these brackets go back together because they're kind of confusing. I don't believe this motor's ever been taken apart. I'm not 100% sure, but it felt like these heads were glued on there. But after everything was off, it didn't really look that bad. The car has, I want to say, 150,000 miles on it, so it shouldn't be terrible. And it seemed like it was pretty well maintained. We were going to be doing the heads and stuff here at the house. We're going to redo valve seals and reseat the valves themselves. So hopefully we won't need to do any other engine work on this. I'm going to be replacing the oil pan here with a chrome one, and also once I get this timing chain cover off, we're obviously going to replace the timing chain and everything. But I'm not sure if I'm going to go with a chrome one because you hardly even see that spot on the timing chain. It does have a lot of sludge in the bottom of the oil pan though, that's for sure. So maybe I was wrong about them maintaining it, but everything else seemed to be pretty good about it. So obviously we're going to plan on replacing the oil pump, the bearings on the crank, and on the connecting rods. Now we're pulling those lifters out to get a chance to see what kind of condition that camshaft is in. If the lifters have like scarring marks on them or anything like that, then chances are the camshaft is going to need to be replaced. But these actually look really good. No marks on them at all. So in an effort to try to clean these heads, I came up with an idea that I could get away with using maybe lacquer thinner and gas to, you know, get the corrosion and carbon and stuff off. But it worked, but it didn't seem to work that well. It still needs to be cleaned some other way, so I still got to figure that out at this point. So now the fun begins. We're taking off the connecting rods and the caps, pulling the pistons out, and getting the engine, rest of it, disassembled. You want to be very careful here. You don't want to put any nicks in the cylinder walls, or, you know, essentially mark up any marks on the crankshaft, because then you're gonna have to go to the machine shop. So essentially one day I'm sitting outside after I pulled this motor apart, and I was doing something else, and I looked at this piston and connecting rod, and I could see this groove in there, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh my god, it's the number 3. That was the first one I pulled out. So I go count up to number 3, and I'm looking at it, and lo and behold, there's a little mark. I guess this was a factory defect. It's the only thing I could put it as. So off to the machine shop I go, maybe $100 later, and a week later, and I had it back with oversized bearings. So after pulling the head off, taking the valve springs and the keepers and stuff out, I decided to try to seat these valves by myself. I had this little tool that I picked up, but it didn't seem to really want to do the job. This is more, I think, for like a little like go-kart engine or a lawnmower engine or something like that. So I kind of had to come up with something a little bit better to do. Something I could do 16 of them. So after fighting with it for a little bit, I decided I'm going to stick this back in here. And then why couldn't I take my drill and lock the chuck onto the end of this valve stem? As long as I did it without it like spinning, which it's not screwing anything in, essentially it shouldn't damage anything. It's just grabbing a hold of it. So in theory, the seat worked and cleaned it up a lot better than I could ever did it with by hand, but these valves are still so carboned up, they have to be cleaned first, but at least I know I can reseat these valves. So after doing a little bit of research to try to see what I could use to clean this up, since the gas and lacquer thinner wouldn't actually clean it up, a lot of people recommended this chem dip, or they recommended .4 brake fluid, which I thought was weird, but now that I think about it, if brake fluid gets on your paint, it eats it and everything. So I decided to get some brake fluid and some chem dip and just do a little experiment here on this head and see what one cleans better or faster and better, I guess. So this one I'll just leave the brake fluid on, and then the other one I'm going to leave the chem dip on. Maybe leave it on for overnight or something. Actually, you can see right here I wiped it off right away, the chem dip, and it cleaned it perfectly clean. The brake fluid did clean it, but it didn't clean it as good as the chem dip. So I decided the chem dip is the way to go, and I ended up cleaning everything up with the chem dip. So that chem dip experiment in the heads made me think I could probably do something better with it, because looking at this, it's pretty nice. So it looks like off to the part store I go to get more chem dip. It seemed like only every part store around me only had 2 gallons at a time. So this chem dip comes in a gallon container, but in order for you to use this gallon container as a parts wash bucket, it only gives you like 3/4 of the gallon. So in order to fill up this 5-gallon bucket, I would have had to roughly get about 8 1-gallon cans to make this 5 gallons fit. But then it would have been too full, so I only put 4 or 3 in there. Actually, I think it's 3 I put in there. So it didn't even fill it halfway, but I figured once I stick the parts in there, it'll raise that level up and then clean more, essentially. So after I stuck this head in, I realized it went only to about the 3rd valve up. So I had to put more liquid in, pulled the parts back out, and decided to put both heads in at the same time, which made it almost halfway. Just a little bit under halfway, so that's not that good either. So on the bench here, you can see it started breaking down that carbon buildup that was in the exhaust. And you can see where it literally stopped cleaning, and there's a cutoff line, a clean cutoff line. So now I decided to flip them over, put them back in, let them soak for another 12 hours or so, and then I'll probably do this process one more time before I take them outside and rinse them off. With doing it this way, it actually cleaned out all the passages inside the heads and everything as well, so all of it's cleaned up. There's still a little tiny bit of residue, but it should be pretty good, compared to what it was. So back to doing the valves on the other head, putting on the valve steels, and just putting it back together. The Summit tool came in really handy. It was kind of expensive, but it did the job. After seeing the good job that it did on the heads, I decided to put the push rods in there next and see how clean it could get those. Everything in this engine was kind of caked up with crud or whatever, so it's pretty dirty. Just a quick rinse in this chem dip cleaned it up pretty good. So letting it sit for about 20 minutes made a world of difference. So after seeing all the wonderful things, I decided to put these carboned out, oil burnt pistons in there and see what kind of magic they can do. Now I didn't sit here and keep on pulling it out, but here's some side by side of one that was done and then one that was not done. Look at how clean it is. Like, I can't believe how good this stuff actually works. It cleaned out all the oil passages as well. So for the engine block, I kind of did the same. I put that chem dip on a brush and brushed the whole thing. Put a bag over the engine block and let it sit. Kept on wetting it down, until it came out pretty clean. Used some lacquer thinner, cleaned it up the rest of the way. So that chem dip is a really good product, and it can be reused. So it's not like I keep on having to buy it or something. So in order to clean up this transmission real good, I tried using this Dawn power wash and then oven cleaner. I'm just going to go back and forth, rotating between cleaning it with one, rinsing it off, cleaning it with the other, rinsing it off. And then I also grabbed this little brush here that I use to clean up most of the motor and hit it with that too. Get most of that loose stuff or stuff that isn't that loose off. So after it was all cleaned up, I brought it in and it actually looks pretty good. There is some spots that I'm still gonna have to go and touch up to clean, but more or less it took it all off because this thing was caked up with oil and grease. If this video helped you, please like and subscribe. Next video, we'll be putting the motor back together. Until then, later.